What crazy-ass story do you need to tell? Story 1. A little while back my roommate was contacted by a wealthy man in the area who wanted to pay her to be his live-in pet for an entire month. She thought that this was a cutesy way of saying that it was a sugar daddy baby arrangement. Turns out what he actually meant was that she would be given room, board, and a very healthy allowance to spend a large portion of her day dressed as a cat, walking on her hands and knees, eating out of a bowl, using a litter box and, yes, sleeping in a little cage at night. Intercourse wasn't even on the table. He was only interested in having a human cat for a month. She seriously considered the offer for a weekend, and then politely declined. Story 2. I was traveling in Honduras with a girl I was seeing. We were traveling with her sister and some other people, staying in a hostel. During the September 15th celebrations in this little town, there were a whole bunch of festivities going on, so we went out and enjoyed the day. At night, walking back to the hostel, we started to fool around a bit. We were making out in the town plaza. We couldn't go back to the hostel to take it further since our friends were there, but it was really dark outside, and the town plaza had some columns and areas that were relatively private. So we just decide to do the deed there. We start banging, in between a couple of the columns. So she is leaning back against a column and we are kind of on the ground. After a little while, she starts shaking and I look at her and she has this weird look on her face and is shaking like crazy. I think, wow, she is having the craziest orgasm I've ever seen. Then I felt a really strange sensation all through my legs, and I think, wow, I'm having a really crazy orgasm too. I had this sensation I couldn't really place, but it was familiar. Then I place the sensation. Electricity. I realize I'm being electrocuted through my legs, and I look at her and realize she is too. I pull us both to the side. I looked at the column she was leaning against, and there were exposed wires coming out of it. She was kind of crying and freaking out because she thought she was going to pass away and couldn't move. Story 3. My dad went to secondary school with John Lennon and was a couple years older than him. Dad was known for playing the drums and being quite musical. One day John asked him whether he'd like to be the drummer in a band is forming. Dad was keen, but my granny said he needed to prioritize studying and so he didn't join. The band formed and were called the Quarrymen, and I think a guy called Colin was the drummer instead of Dad, who I believe was later replaced by Pete Best and then Ringo as they changed to the Silver Beatles and then the Beatles. I like to imagine that in an alternative universe my dad said yes and that was history. I don't even mind that I wouldn't have been born if this had been the outcome. He really deserved to have had that lifetime.